Have you seen Chuck Norris lately? He's still kicking butt and staying active well into his 80s. What's even more shocking is he looks more jacked than ever and seems to have more energy than guys half his age. And it's all thanks to Morning Kick, a revolutionary new daily drink from Roundhouse Provisions that combines ultra-potent greens like spirulina and kale with probiotics, prebiotics, collagen, and even ashwagandha. Just mix with water, stir, and enjoy. Unlike other green drinks out there, this one tastes exactly like strawberry lemonade and has hundreds of 5-star reviews. Go to roundhouseprovisions.com/save44 for up to 44% off your regular priced order. Plus, every purchase is backed by a 90-day money-back guarantee. So if you want to experience smoother digestion, a boost of energy, and just an overall healthier body, then go to roundhouseprovisions.com/save44 today. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Results can vary.
The following podcast may contain discussions supported by science that may be considered dangerous to some listeners and conspiracy theorists. Discretion is advised.
The 3 Down Greencast is brought to you by Lucky Bastard Distillers, Saskatchewan's premier distillery, and by the Pile of Bones Brewing Company, brewed in the heart of Regina. Welcome to the 3 Down Greencast. You are listening to the internet's only Saskatchewan Roughriders podcast. I don't really have anything too joyful to talk about off the top here. Joel Gasson and John Fraser, as usual, as always. We will, of course, talk about the Saskatchewan Roughriders' win over the Edmonton Elks. The injury to Trevor Harris, the play that led to the injury, and whether he should play this week against Winnipeg or not, and we'll talk a little bit about that game going forward as well. If you're a long-time listener of this podcast, generally speaking, so I guess Jock, Dave, and Grandma, you know that we generally like to keep it light off the top. We often talk about something that has absolutely nothing to do with football. We like to get dumb and just have some fun with something sort of recent in the news that has caught our attention that we can have a little bit of fun with.
Yes.
Unfortunately, today, as we record this on Wednesday, for John and I think especially, and for a number of people in the industry, the wind has kind of been taken out of our sails a little bit today.
Yes.
If we're being perfectly honest, as yet again, one of the two giant media companies in this country, Bell Media this time, so I'm sure Rogers is coming soon.
After their merger with Chorus, they're going to have a reason to get rid of everybody.
Mm-hmm. Slashed, I think it was like 1,300 jobs or something. Shut down 6 AM radio stations, including TSN 1260 in Edmonton, and a number of other stations that were previously TSN that got shut down as TSNs and turned into sort of random either pre-recorded talk sort of stuff, comedy or whatever. That surprise, that didn't work.
Shocker
that just running stand-up comedy didn't work.
Censored stand-up comedy. Let's not forget that as well.
Mm-hmm. Or running the Business News Network, I believe, is what they were doing in Hamilton. All this, of course, on the, there's been, you've seen that everyone knows how much money these two companies make.
Yes.
They live in a very sheltered environment in this country where the government allows basically little competition, and Bell and Rogers have basically taken advantage of that and scooped up everything along the way. And now are just continuing to do what they want, despite in Q2 making something like $771 billion. It wasn't enough, apparently.
To be precise, $771 million profit in Q3 of last year, which is the last reporting profit for the company. That's a 12.74% return. I don't know any investments out there, being a bit of a nerd in that space, that would return you 12% in over that period, like next to none. There's nothing returning that kind of return. And so what do? They go ahead and they got newsrooms. And the irony is they're sitting here, oh, you need to be more local. And they're going ahead and like blowing people out the door. Like I don't get it. And the one that really befuddles me is TSN 1260 in Edmonton.
Yeah.
Like, how on earth are you taking what realistically that Dusty Nielsen and Lieutenant Eric and Jason Greger and everybody else there really took that station to mainstream appeal. I follow those guys, and I hate Edmonton sports fans. Oilers fans are some of the most insufferable people you'll ever meet in your life.
Yeah.
Not all of them. I'm just painting with a broad social media biased brushstroke here. But for those guys to be like mainstream entertainment that you could follow and for the takes and without being too asinine, for those guys to be without a job and to do it the most terrible way possible, basically like, all right, we're in the middle of Dusty's show, so what we're going to do is we're just going to pull the plug in and you're all done. Like, it's laughable. Like, it's already laughable the state that's media in this country was in already, like where, living here in Saskatoon, where they say, no, people are served by TSN. They don't need to know what's going on with everything else. Meanwhile, we have a WHL team, an NLL team, University Athletic, who have all this other stuff that's been completely like underexposed since they made that decision. They don't even have a full-time sports guy here in Saskatoon. And if the rumors we're hearing from a close friend of the show are true, CTV Saskatoon is basically barely existing after all this, and it's just it's frustrating to see that, because the money's still there.
Yes, there's no question about it.
Like look at when TSN or Bell Media tried this in Winnipeg. They shut down the TSN. Oh God, I can't remember the
1290.
1290. Yeah. So they shut down 1290. And within about a week, friend of the program, Darren Bombing, and then also Hustler, I can't remember who else, basically started their own brands.
Yeah.
And all those guys, you can look at the numbers on YouTube. They're huge numbers, right? They're live streams, their interactivity. Look at what happened when they did it with out in Vancouver, Don Taylor and his co-host. That's now on
Sakaris
TV.
and Price are they have their own thing as well.
Exactly. So everywhere that they've done this, these guys have been able to go out with their own brand that you're just getting rid of to save, maybe, I don't know, like a guy like Dusty, maybe $100,000 a year. So you're going out and getting rid of these, and all they're doing is taking your ad revenue. Like, I don't get it. They're saying, it's the regulatory climate and we need to adapt and blah, blah, blah. Well, you have the adaptation. It's right there.
What regulatory climate? Right, the one that allows them to exist in sort of basically a duopoly or oligarchy, whatever you want to call it? Like,
well,
what I want to hear from someone within these companies that is apparently the regulations have made it so hard for them.
Which is bullshit.
And I'm not necessarily against most of the regulations, but if you're going to blame this for the fact that you only made $770 million last quarter,
in a quarter,
reported,
in a quarter,
I would like to see the homework on that.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, and it's such short-sightedness that how in a world that a company that's making billions of dollars a year, and I get it, yeah, you see the argument, yeah, we're going to lose $250 million in traditional phone service. Okay, well, if you take that out of one quarter's profit, now you're down to $500 million. Like, that's the absurd thing. I could see, and I know smaller media companies have had to do this as people shift away. They have had to cut back because they're just not making the same money they were before. But Bell is essentially looking at the fact that if you're a Stingray radio station, and you and I can both laugh at this. How many people were at the first radio station you worked at, Gasson?
How many people, like, in the building?
In the building, mostly on air, but let's just say on air. First place you ever worked, how many people were on air when you started?
When I started, there were, how many people were there? There was a morning show of 2, midday, afternoon drive, evening people split with the weekend, so we had like swing positions.
Yeah.
They all had like program director and music director stuff in there, and we were a newsroom of 3. Okay. Plus like 2 producers, a couple producer writers, promotions, 3 or 4 salespeople. Like, this was a small independent station in Grand Prairie, Alberta.
Right. But even for a small independent station in middle of nowhere, we're talking 20 people?
At most, yeah.
Okay, so 20-ish people. I started at the Goat in Lloydminster. Same thing, 3-person morning show. Middays, 2-person drive show. Newsroom of the two of us, me and Jeremy Dodge. 2 evening/swing, and then your normal staff. So we were around 20-ish. Like, I'd say probably on the thicker side of 20 with sales and everybody. Do you know how many people, how many live announcers there are for Stingray radio stations in rural Alberta? 1. There's 1 person live. Do you know how many live announcers, and this is our friend, Graham Mossaman, whose voice you hear on this very podcast, at a station in Edmonton. Do you know how many live announcers there are? 1. It's Graham. That's the state of media in this country, and yet they all come out and have to say, oh, we're crying so poor, we need to cut jobs, we need to do the... Fuck off. You're paying some kid $40,000 a year to press buttons. You could pay 2 kids. Take that out of your $771 million. Like, come on.
Yeah.
You have the ability to, where all you report to is the shareholders, and but even with that, a 12% return. If you could give if you put $100,000 in a Bell stock last quarter, you just made yourself $12,000 for doing nothing. But no, we got to get the dividends. We got to gut from the bottom. Like, they're not cutting $100,000 salaries.
No.
30-ish. I mean, my first fucking radio job, I made $26,000 a year. That's the people they're letting go. And you're all going to sit here and cry foul, and in 3 or 4 years, when those profits are gone, because nobody's listening to your shit, and everybody's switching their cell phone plans, and you haven't been allowed to merge with Rogers or Global or whoever, you're going to come cry foul to us. You're going to need taxpayer money for a bailout because you mismanaged your company and you got rid of what made you local, and everybody's going to be on XM, and everybody's going to be on Spotify, and everybody's going to find people like Bomber who are going to put together their own thing and be passionate as hell about it and put out content that is 100 times better than anything Bell's going to put out.
Yeah, I think the industry, and when I'm talking about the industry now, I'm not talking about the owners. I'm talking about those of us that work in it. More so, not necessarily on like the jock side of things. That's slang for the people who talk. If you listen to music radio, they kind of play in between sets every now and then. That's a jock. For those of us who are former journalists or thought ourselves or were labeled as journalists or whatever you wanted to call us, I think the reckoning is coming in the sense that there is definitely not... It doesn't jive anymore. You can't. No. I don't think the future of journalism is going to be with any sort of large corporation, because the goals just do not line up in the slightest. So what you're going to need is you're going to need like the Defector. You're going to need these places like that where it's like, okay, we are owned by ourselves. We will do what we can to, provide ourselves with a good living, but that's where this ends. We are doing this to keep ourselves and each other afloat, and we are going to do the job that is needed and required from the service that people expect and need from journalism. And this isn't even about sports right now. I don't give a damn about sports in the grand scheme of things, which is a weird thing for me to say out loud as someone who talks for sports as a hobby, essentially. But there is real work that real journalists do that is very important. And if there isn't outlets for them to do that, quite frankly, as a society, we are fucked.
Yes, 100%. 100%. It's one thing for teams to bring in Ed Tate, Rob Vanstone.
Yeah, at the end of the day, sports, fine. Like, we all like to think the work we do in sports is very important. Again, I know it's weird to say this out loud, but frankly, in the grand scheme of everything, it's not. So, yeah, if teams tighten up their, who's available, and teams tighten up sort of their approach to media and try to keep things in-house and control the message, yeah, that's annoying. Yeah, everyone hates it. But at the end of the day, the sun's going to come up and you're not going to be you're not going to be stuck in some shithole somewhere because of it.
Exactly. Now, what scares me, and you alluded to it, what happens when, it's one thing, Rob Vanstone, great content, love Rob going on the Riders, love the passion he brings, it's great, right? Again, it's always going to have a little bit of bias. He is a team employee. Much like I should also disclose, I am a team employee of the Saskatchewan Rush, not Bell Media. Well, actually, technically unrestricted free agent as of still today. But What happens when corporations start getting their own guys? What happens when political parties start getting their own guys? We already saw this with the UCP a little bit.
Yeah. I mean,
their own news-ish broadcast. I mean,
essentially the main news broadcast put on by these big corporations is that you're not going to see anything about the Bell Media cuts on any CTV news today.
No, of course not.
So in a roundabout way, they already have it.
Well, that's it. That is exactly it. You're gonna have to watch Global to get it, but instead they run their fluff pieces on their own websites to talk about it. As I'm trying to find out and sort through the BS and see which former coworkers won't be there anymore. DMs are always open, guys. Always open. If you've been out there, if you've been affected by the layoffs, both of us are here for you. DMs are always open, and I say this without say this kind of as a joke, but not really. And if you need a job, there's always car dealership hiring someplace. I can tell you that much. If I like you enough, I can probably even get you a job at the one I work at.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I guess on a side about Ray, that's all we really had to say about that. And we will get to football, we promise.
Yes.
But I do have a little.
Three of you are here for.
Yeah, that's what the three of you are kind of here for. I would be remiss, though, while on the topic of media, that I didn't plug the new thing that I am doing for 3 Down Nation this year. It's something that Dunk and I have kind of talked off and on about for a few years now, for being completely honest. And I never really... There were certain times where I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it. There's other times where I was just kind of didn't really want to make out the time to do it and all that. Now that I've kind of, I think, come to the conclusion and acceptance that sort of my quote-unquote mainstream media career is over and that I'm quite content with that I felt more comfortable than ever to basically watch every CFL on TSN that game that I can this year and then write a column about it and share my thoughts. And if it's not all negative, like I'm not just going to sit here and only produce what I didn't like on the broadcast side. I'll gladly talk about what I liked as well, because as much as we crap on the CFL on TSN here, they do some good things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In between some of the other things we don't necessarily like. So you can catch the first 3 Downs on the CFL on TSN. You can read that up on 3downnation.com if you haven't already.
Well, and let's face it. I mean, talking about us saying good things about it. I think in terms of the power rankings of people we respect / have a little bit of a broadcasting bro crush on in this podcast, Sergio's still number 1. Dusty Nielsen might be number 2.
Yes.
And I mean that is no disrespect to anybody else.
No, and like
DTs.
Just to give you a little tease of the article, I do think Dustin Nielsen's his call is only getting better. And that game with Dwayne Ford on Friday night was just a masterclass from both of them.
Oh, 100%. It was just outstanding stuff. So, no, it's not all negative. It's I like it. It's objective. But like you said, you don't have to worry about burning any bridges with atomic fire Fraser style because you're retired.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm technically a contracted employee of other people.
A hired goon.
That's right. Yes, I'm the goon. I am the goon.
So we do have a Rider game to talk about, of course, the win over the Edmonton Elks, barely. The Trevor Harris situation, and a look ahead a little bit to this week's game against the Bombers. But as usual, John, before we get into all that, for the Pile of Bones Brewing Company, what is in the glass this week?
Well, yesterday, fun story, I was out there in plus 30 at a golf tournament where I had a DD to and from, and the golf course I was at, Moon Lake Golf and Country Club, out here in Saskatoon, had readily available on the beer carts and at the bar, the Saskatoon Berry iced tea from Lucky Bastard. So instead of having on a hot day, there's nothing worse than getting a beer and then it's like warm and gross, like about halfway through. Those Saskatoon Berry iced teas, you can drink like even when they're a little warm, and holy crap, I had way too many of them, Joel. I can tell you for the second time in, 5-6 years of doing this, something like that. I don't know.
We're really good historians of our own podcast, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah, clearly we clearly track this shit. All I know is we came very close for the second time ever having water be what's in the glass, but no, put on my big boy pants, a little Lucky Bastard bitters, a little Lucky Bastard vodka, a little lime, little lemon, and that's what's in the glass.
Nice. I did get my first 12-pack of Lucky Bastard iced teas delivered today from the company, so that's that'll be appreciated this weekend and beyond. For me, though, I picked up today just because I wanted to, was the new Yuzu Spritz Pale Ale from High Key Brewing. It is this year's SCBA, the Saskatchewan Craft Brewers Association collaboration. So basically all the profits head back into the association for that one. No actual yuzu in it, but they describe it, this pale ale as bright, light, and refreshing, showcasing a unique blend of hops with notes of grapefruit and lemon.
Sounds delicious.
It's kind of white IPA-ish, but a little bit of a different citrus profile, essentially, is how I describe it.
Interesting. Well, now I am very interested and have to go get some. And I definitely didn't think that I'd want to drink anything carbonated or beer-like for at least 2 days.
Well, you surprise yourself sometimes.
Well, you know what? Sometimes you just gotta rally, Joel, because I know I am going to the game on Friday and taking a bus down. So I will put on my proverbial big boy pants.
Why are so many dogs suffering from health issues? Actress Katherine Heigl, who's helped save over 16,000 dogs through her foundation, says she's seeing more issues with dogs' joints, odors, and health than ever before. And after doing a ton of research, she feels there's one place we can look to support any dog's health: their food. So she decided to create something she could actually feel good about feeding her dogs. It's called Superfood Complete. Superfood Complete is made with over 30 of the healthiest ingredients on the planet, including several superfoods vital to your dog's health. Badlands Ranch also sponsors the Jason Debus Heigl Foundation, which has helped rescue thousands of dogs and place them in loving homes. Dogs across America are trying this food and experiencing amazing health benefits. Go to badlandsranch.com/save50 and order right now to get up to 50% off your regular price order with a 90-day money-back guarantee. If you want your dog to experience all these incredible things, go to badlandsranch.com/save50 today. If people are dieting now more than ever before, then why are nearly 1 in 3 American adults overweight? Dr. Gundry, who's helped thousands lose weight and feel younger and healthier than ever, says most people are not getting enough fat-burning MCTs from their food. MCTs are a special kind of compound that, instead of turning into fat when you consume it, turns into ketones, which is a chemical that breaks down the excess fat in your body. So, by getting more MCTs in your diet, you essentially flip a switch that puts your body in caloric bypass mode, which can flush out excess fat and calories. And he's created an easy way for you to activate caloric bypass right at home. It's called MCT Wellness. This powerful blend of fat-flushing MCT powders and antioxidant-rich polyphenols is designed to help you unlock your body's fat-burning, energy-producing potential. What's even better is that it's a delicious drink. I love how incredible it tastes. All you do is add a scoop to water, enjoy, and watch as you start feeling slimmer and more energized. So, if you want to experience a quick, easy, and effective way to melt pounds fast, go to GundryMD.com/energy and order right now to get up to 53% off your regular price order with a 90-day money-back guarantee. Again, that's GUNDRYMD.com/energy.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.
The Riders, they rallied, of course, on Sunday evening as they beat the Edmonton Elks 17-13. Not exactly the most exhilarating football games anyone's ever watched, but it's week one, and I think for the most part, kind of what I expected. I honestly thought the Riders were going to find a way to lose that game. And when they kind of got that chintzy pass interference, that illegal contact into pass interference call that put the Elks at the 1, I was like, oh yeah, here we go.
Yep.
And then we'll start with the positives from this game, and that was the defense.
Yeah,
and
goodness, yes.
And it feels very much to me like there was a bit of a shift in tone from Jason Shiver's defense this year. I think since he's taken over from Chris Jones as defensive coordinator, he's obviously done a very good job. We've heaped a lot of praise on his defense his entire time. Mm-hmm. But we've kind of described it's been more sort of a, I don't want to say bend but not break, but a more sort of traditional style, sort of, technique strong, guys in the right spot kind of defense.
Yes.
And it still is that in a lot of ways, but it feels like they've ratcheted up the physicality a few percentage notches, and that's just from a couple of guys alone, because there were some big hits early in that game that seemed very much like a message to the league from this defense being like, we're a little different this year.
Yeah, certainly. A lot more physicality, a lot more meanness. I mean, you're not going to stop a team 3 times from the 1 without being extremely physical. Like, that's just like, let's face it, when you're down on the 1 yard line, it is just pure physicality. You know that they're going to drop something. You just got to beat the guy in front of you, get over top of them. And yeah, it definitely a change. Really worked for them because, again, if you would have told me that Trevor Harris would be under 200 yards with more interceptions than touchdowns in his debut and the Riders would win, I would have called you crazy. But that's exactly what happened. That's how good this defense was. The offense was showing some signs of life, some signs of improvement compared to last year. But it was the defense that won them this game, and they didn't do it in a flashy pick six city kind of way. They just outplayed Edmonton. They were just more physical than Edmonton. And again, it helped the team hold on to the ball a lot longer. They had it for 33 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And it should be noted as well that your boy Taylor Cornelius looked like maybe the worst quarterback in the league in that game.
Oof. He was, definitely. The Fraser curse might be more powerful than the Arash Madani boost.
Yeah.
As Arash came out and said, hey, he's a sneaky candidate here for MOP, and then just comes out and looks like crap. Although he did throw for more yards than Trevor.
Well,
again,
108 of them were on one pass to Geno Lewis.
Yeah, so take 108 out of there, and you're left with 94 yards passing outside the Geno Lewis play.
And I think they only converted like 3 second downs or something stupid. So
yeah. It's also funny as I've got the new stats platform up here, how broken it is. Yeah. Apparently Cornelius' long pass of the night was 17 yards, and we all know that is not true.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a thing. That's
what a whole disaster.
Eugene Lewis had his 102-yard reception. They're calling it 102. So yes, he had exactly 100 passing yards on his 12 other attempts.
Yeah, I mean this whole stats thing is just it's hard to take it in right now with the league that's trying to make itself look serious and present itself in the 21st century. And here we are heading into week 2 when we don't know if the stats are going to be working yet.
Yes, and also my my application to get the game stats page is still pending.
Interesting.
And that's over a week now. Yes. So, hey, the CFL, everybody.
Yeah. Of course, Taylor Cornelius wasn't the only quarterback in that game. Trevor Harris, as we mentioned, didn't have the best night. I don't think any of us were expecting greatness out of his first start. It's an entirely new offense, new quarterback, sort of rebuilt offensive line, new receivers, new offensive coordinator, new system, new everything.
Yes.
So to expect the offense to come out and light the world on fire would maybe be a little bit of a stretch. They maybe underperformed a little bit to expectations, but for the most part, I wouldn't worry about it too much yet. I would give it a few weeks to see how this sort of starts to come together, because that's generally how these things work, especially when you're starting quarterback, threw exactly 4 passes in the preseason against a bunch of backups. So
well, and that's it. And you're absolutely right with that, Gas. Because the other thing too, I mean, when you're looking at the underlying stats, you had 20 runs between Morrow and Hickson. Like, to me, that's the important thing. That's the thing that they got away from a little bit.
Most of them, they only got most of those yards in the fourth quarter when it started working and they actually closed the game up. Before that, they were just beating themselves into a wall on first down for some reason. That's...
Well, and the thing is, too, is like that's when you need your running backs to come up big like that, right?
Yeah, no,
the other thing I really like, there was not a lot of, like, the ball got spread around passing-wise. Mm-hmm. Right? Like,
it's very clear that Trevor Harris doesn't have, like, a favorite. Well, yeah, he probably has a favorite, but he's not, like, he doesn't zone in on certain guys, for sure.
No, he distributes the ball. That's what he's known to do, and I don't think any of us thought that this offense was going to be world beaters, but unlike last year, I don't think that they're going to handicap your chances to win a game.
No, right? And, I mean, we'll see if they put another performance like that against, another competent offense. That might be a different story, but...
Right.
Against the Edmonton Elks, it was enough. But, of course, the conversation of that game turned very quickly. In the final minute of play, about 28 seconds left, to be exact, I believe, Craig Dickinson, the head coach, was left with a choice.
Yes.
He could have kicked like a 30-something yard field goal, which, sure, would have been fine.
Yep.
I don't think it would have been necessarily a wrong decision.
No.
Or...
I mean, the thing is with the field goal, you're always setting up the potential of a long return, especially those short ones, right?
Yeah, well, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Well, the other option, which is the one he took, which was have Trevor Harris run around for a little bit and then eventually just throw it away.
Right.
And so, before we get into what actually happened to Trevor Harris, because that's a different part of the equation that should have been solved differently.
Yes.
The actual process that Craig Dickinson went through and made the decision of the initial play call. We'll get into why Trevor Harris should not have been the guy to do it, but the actual play call itself, I actually agree with and I actually like.
I love it.
Because you're presented, basically, the Edmonton Elks, and that's why the field goal isn't bad. Your percentages of winning are still astronomical. They still need some kind of miraculous play to score a touchdown.
Yes.
But basically, the Elks in that scenario have 3 ways they can likely score a touchdown. Number 1, if you kick the field goal and you miss, there's a return field goal touchdown. Number 2, either you make the field goal and kick off, and then they maybe have to return that depending on how much time is left, or if they get another play, they need a Hail Mary probably for a pass interference call, followed by another Hail Mary for a touchdown, or they need to do the near impossible and score on the hook and ladder.
Yes.
So out of those scenarios, Mr. John Fraser, which would you say is likely the more likely to happen?
I would say the most likely out of all of those would be the missed field goal return. Mm-hmm.
So I would say...
To be entirely honest.
Yes. So, I mean, statistically, they're probably all not that far off from each other.
Right.
Like, in terms of, like, actuality of happening, like, for the sake of math, there's, let's say, a 25% chance of a missed field goal being returned for a touchdown. Maybe, like, a 5% chance on the double Hail Mary and like a 1% chance on the hook and ladder. So odds are in all 3 scenarios they're still going to go on to win the football game. And as a guy who appreciates process over results, as we talk about on this podcast, I like the process of the decision Craig Dickinson made not to kick the field goal and kill as much clock as possible by having the quarterback run around. Yes. The issue that I had with the play was that he chose to keep his starting quarterback out in that role. And sure, 99 times out of 100, the guy is probably not going to get hurt in that scenario. But guess what? This was the 1 in 100, and now Trevor Harris is hurt because he didn't put Shea Patterson out there.
Well, and another to add to the other things that could happen, a fumble could happen. So you got to think, like, in a play like that, the defensive linemen, they have their ears pinned back because they know exactly what's going to happen, right? Yes, you could have a fumble, but just as easily as you could have a blown coverage, and all of a sudden Trevor Harris has a man wide open. But it blows me away that they left Harris out there, especially with them basically coming into the preseason and saying, okay, we're going to design packages for Shea Patterson.
Yeah.
They basically were, he's going to be our running guy. He's going to be our change of pace guy. Here's what he's going to do, right? So even if Patterson doesn't throw it away, even if he just runs around for a while and then slides when he's about to get his bell rung, then that's still better off than what happened to Trevor Harris. Like, I don't understand why a guy who's approaching 40 is the guy you roll out there to take that play.
And this is a sort of a thing that's fallen back on the coaching staff. Is he's apparently been the one practicing this, and my question is why?
Right. Why? That makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
Hell, you'd be better off having your punter run around for a bit and then boot it.
Yeah, I mean, have your punter run back like 20 yards and then kick it.
That's
like you used to, like when the old game NFL Blitz where you like run back like 20 yards and then throw like an 80-yard touchdown pass.
Right.
Basically that minus the touchdown pass.
Or Tecmo Bowl when used to get Bo Jackson, and the way to get Bo Jackson was to run everybody back to the end zone and then run through everybody. Yes, exactly like that, but less Bo Jackson. Why on earth would I didn't know that till now. That Trevor Harris was the guy practicing that. That makes absolutely no sense at all. Especially when they clearly trust Patterson enough to let him stand in there and throw. Because there was the one play where Patterson threw the ball.
Yeah, he came in for a short yardage. They kept him in on first down, like sort of that package calls for sometimes. Yes. And then they pulled up Blue Bombers and he passed. When they had not established the run with him at all yet, really.
Right, and that's it. So obviously you trust him to pass in that spot. Why would you not trust him to run around and pass? Because let's face it, the Riders have a very much clear defined starting quarterback, and then 3 other guys who might be the backup that week.
Well, based on what we've heard from practice this week with Trevor Harris being quote-unquote limited, I guess Mason Fine's the backup because he's been taking the snaps when Harris hasn't been.
Well, that's even after Dickinson tried to pull his best Chris Jones impression today at practice. I love that Britton Gray from CKOM basically went, all right, so did Mason Fine throw the ball a lot? And he slipped up and went, yeah, he did. He looked great. Kudos to Britton for that, for just finding a different way to phrase the question and catching Dickinson in that. So, I mean, even look at our website, look at 3 Down Nation, it's talking about how Dickinson says, oh yeah, no, he's going to practice Wednesday. It'll be fine. Well, Wednesday came and he didn't practice.
Yeah.
So
and as the old saying goes, practice don't lie.
It's true. And that leads me to believe that on Friday night, on top of Kim Mitchell, we're going to see Mason Fine.
Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, if there's at all any doubt, if there's at all any question about how healthy Trevor Harris is going into this game, he shouldn't play.
No.
I know it's the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
I know
that every game matters and, all that sort of stuff. But, I mean, you already have the 1-0 start. If you're 1-1 after 2 weeks, it's not terrible. It's fine. In CFL, yeah. As we said, all you got to do is tread water till Labor Day.
Yes.
And, I mean, there's a pretty good chance they could lose this game with Trevor Harris anyway.
Right.
So, why not? And to me, the main thing, and this will be sort of a defining moment of this season for Craig Dickinson, in terms of, okay, did he learn anything from last season and the debacle that it was? Yes. Because we all heard the stuff in the offseason about how injured Cody Fajardo was and how he probably shouldn't have actually played, etc., etc., etc. Well, here we are again. Now, maybe Trevor Harris isn't nearly as hurt as Cody Fajardo is, but it's still kind of the same thing. So if he's at all, the fact that he hasn't practiced every snap that he would normally practice all week this week, I would say do not put him in this football game. The bigger picture is far more important than any one game, especially on June 16th.
Yes. Well, especially when you're playing a team like Winnipeg that has, like, the defense for Winnipeg look just as mean as ever. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the other thing too. You're not playing a team that's not known for physical play. You're basically, you played Sunday. Now you're going to play Friday. Yeah. Even if it is something just as simple as a Charlie horse, right? Or some sort of, bruise or something like that. He's going to affect other parts of his game. And if he doesn't play on Friday, now you have all the way till June the 24th when you play a Calgary team that's looking like you might be right early on, Joel.
Yeah.
You've got some time to rest your number one quarterback, who, again, as you and I had just discussed last week, it's not about cruise control for being, 15-3.
No.
It's about how well are you playing at the right time of the year. Because, I mean, you look at just looking across the West Division right now, you're one of 2 1-0 teams.
Yep.
You play the other one. Even if you're 1-1 in a worst case scenario, you're still in a pretty good spot because you got BC and Edmonton going head to head. Calgary's going to take on Ottawa, so you're right in the mix. And it's early.
This isn't the NFL, and like even that's changed. Like I remember even 5 years ago, there was the stat was basically in the NFL if you started 0-2, you were doomed.
Yes,
it's slowly changing a bit down there even too. But in the CFL, I mean, when you're 6 of 9 teams and make the playoffs, I mean, the last time the Riders hosted the West Final, they started that year 0-2.
Yes, that's right. I remember that.
They started last year 4-1.
Yeah.
So, I mean, none of this, all this counts in the standings right now. But when it comes time to October and November, it doesn't actually matter unless you go about things the right way and you build your processes and make sure you keep the guys that you need to keep as healthy as possible.
Now, but the question comes down to, we all know that out of all CFL coaches, the seat is probably hottest under Craig Dickinson's ass. Does Craig let that creep into his mindset? Does Craig go, this is best for me to keep my employment and my salary and to keep my future prospects open, and puts Trevor Harris out there at 70%?
I mean, that would be coach thinking. I don't think it would actually be best for his future employment.
No.
If he actually like took a second look at it, if he thought that at all, then he needs to sit back and take a second thought, look at that and be like, okay, is one game of Trevor Harris worth potentially worsening his injury and then pretty much guaranteeing my ticket out of town versus, okay, maybe he sits a week or two, maybe we lose both games, but he comes back and we have a chance.
Well, and here's the other thing too. They got an early bye week this year.
Yeah.
If Harris sits the next 2, he's essentially given a month off if you're only missing 2 games. And then you don't play till July the 6th again in Edmonton. So
yeah.
It's that to me is going to be interesting, and that to me is going to show if Trevor Harris, while I'm out there probably a dozen beers deep in the lower bowl wearing my Sergio jersey, if Trevor Harris is out there, I got a pretty good chance to say that, yeah, Craig Dickinson didn't learn anything, and that seat will just continue to get hotter under his booty.
It's entirely possible. So despite all that, so because the games this year are all, at least for until the NFL season starts, are Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all the contributors on 3 Down Nation who have to get their picks in have to basically have it in by earlier on the day on Wednesday. I filled out my picks on Tuesday night.
Oh.
Even though Trevor Harris, at the time was still questionable and I felt would remain questionable, I just have this, I'm taking a bit of a shot at a left field here. I feel like, despite everything and everything we've said, I feel like the Riders are due for one of those dumb wins where you're just left wondering how the hell they did that. Because this team is filled, the history of this team, as much as we talk about games where they completely shit the bed against bad teams, they tend to have those games where everyone writes them off because, reasons X, Y, and Z, and they're playing a good team, and then, sure enough, they win the game.
And let's not forget that Winnipeg is 1-26 in the last 27 games with me in the stands.
That may be the most super stat there is about this game. Speaking of media that is no longer with us, yeah.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.